To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. I am Russ Evans along with Shannon Nordstrom.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
Chris Carter's out today. We've beat him silly and for a little incident we had last week, and he's not going to show up. No, just kidding. He'll.
I didn't think he'd protest in this manner.
He'll be back next week, hopefully. Well, you never know. I mean, he angers me, and that's what happens. So hopefully he's lying at home. He's probably laid out somewhere right now because
laid out flat. I bet.
Maybe laid out flat, and I bet you he's watching right now on YouTube because he's just that kind of guy, and that's what he does. So, Memorial Day weekend. That was quite a thing. You have any big stuff come up?
No, as a rule, I didn't. I waited to do my stupid stuff until after Memorial Day weekend. So I didn't do it during the weekend. I didn't go out on the road traveling like a lot of people did. We had a number of folks that were out on the road. They said one of the busiest travel weekends they've had for a long time. In our part of the world where we're at, we had 3 days of wonderful Memorial Day weather, which never happens. We usually get maybe one, sometimes none. But we had 3 days in a row that were warm and sunny and the type of weather you wanted to be outside in.
Seems like that Monday is always the one that really takes a turn. It's either cold or rainy
or that's the one good day as you're getting done with the weekend. You know, it's kind of one of them. That's what it seems like, at least. But I think our minds play tricks on us sometimes. But I know for a fact that we had 3 in a row that were really nice and felt good. But there's a lot of people that broke things. We had the calls on Tuesday when we got back to our shop for parts. Boy, there was a lot of people asking about transmissions and transfer cases and just those general rear axle assemblies. And I think a lot of that, Russ, is still from people over capacity towing. What I saw on the road was a lot of people over capacity towing.
That's the theme of today's show, road trip breakdown. So I did not go out on the road. And one of the reasons is the week before, I had a road trip breakdown. I had a transfer case break, and it broke in such a way as where I could not back up. And I had no engine braking. So when I would slow down, you would just...
In the diesel?
Yeah, you would just feel a ratcheting. And it's very uncommon on that kind of transfer case.
Yeah, they're usually strong ones.
And it's a 4401. It's a monster case. They use them for rock crawlers and stuff. And it just happened that it just decided to go. So it's in the middle of being repaired right now. But sitting at home with a chance to do this and looking out over the highway.
Yeah, you have an interstate right in your
your
view.
Yeah, so I watched cars go by and trucks go by. And like you said, it was amazing to see how many people that were obviously over towing.
Yeah, when you can see it by your naked eye, you don't even want to weigh it.
When you've got a half-ton truck, an older one, not the 1500s, which will do more than a half, but the older ones, like an 02, 03, or even older, and it's sitting down so low on the back that it's almost on the stops, and they've got a big fifth wheel on it and a boat behind that. Yeah, you're over towing. You're looking for an issue, and especially at the speed they're going, I can just hear them screaming as they're going by. But the one that really caught my eye out of all of them was a truck, probably an 04, 05 Chevy half-ton, and it was pulling a very small fifth wheel. It was probably, I'd say 21 foot, 22 foot, so it was a little short fifth wheel.
Yeah, and that truck, what do we think, just based on our knowledge, that's probably a 7,000 pound, 8,000 pound
at the most,
GVW?
Depending on the engine that's in it. Yeah.
Or towing rating, I mean.
So it's pulling that, and you thought, all right, that in itself is fine, and the truck wasn't squatting down, so it wasn't too loaded. I thought that's about right. And then you look at what the camper is towing. You got to remember, fifth wheel campers, just because it has a hitch on it, doesn't mean it's designed to pull anything. A lot of those hitches are only designed for bike racks and accessory options, not for towing. You need one that has a label on it that specifically says tow rating, tongue weight, etc. And then it'll say what your truck should have. And some of that has to do with the hitch that's on the front of the fifth wheel. Other times it has to do with the frame of the camper.
Exactly. What's the structure running through and underneath that camper?
Might not be anything back there, but a couple thin pieces of angle iron going back there that's part of the floor of the camper. So behind it, it had I think it was a 28-foot fishing boat, because it said 2801 on it. So I'm guessing
let me play advocate. Oh, it's a light aluminum fishing boat, not a big deal.
Well, it had 3 axles under it.
Okay.
And the side of it was tall enough that if I stood next to it, I couldn't see over the rail. So it was a big, big, heavy fishing boat. If you're listening out there, you're crazy. I thought, wow, is the reason that the truck's not squatting down because of all the tongue weight on the back of the camper holding it up?
Holding it up.
But I just, wow. I do see a lot of people pulling lightweight boats, real small ones with these things. But when you get into pontoons and other big things, it can get kind of scary back there. As an auto recycler, we see plenty of stuff that's been wrecked, and you just wonder, and you say, what happened there? Oh, it was behind a camper, and oh, okay, you're not going to give us the rest of the story. Nope. So
something broke.
Yeah, you just never know, but it's always safer. And I had the week before when I was out running, I just had to be careful because I had a bike rack on the back of the camper. And did you know that bike racks are rated for what they're on? You have to have a special rated bike rack to go behind a camper.
Tell me more.
Well, they're designed a lot heavier. And I noticed I don't have a camper rated one.
Because of the bouncing and the trauma that they take on the back?
Jake at our shop lost one. It didn't come completely off, but it was dangling because it broke. It was hanging. And the reason it was hanging is because it's a 4-bike rack. It wasn't camper rated, and there's so much bounce going on back there. I was just looking in my camera, and with 2 bikes on that rack, it was all over the place. So when I got where I was going, which was only about an hour trip, once they came off, they didn't go back on the rack. They went in the back of the truck, which was fine to carry them. I'm going to have to get a camper rated rack or use my bigger. I've got like a motorcycle rack that goes back there. But yeah, that thing was bouncing a lot. Now, you don't want to lose a rack, especially if you don't have a camera back there.
I had some friends of ours, been a lot of years ago. We were all going down to Yankton, and I remember I got down there and they said, yeah, kids don't have bikes, and they had to pick them up along the highway. They had all fallen off, and I scattered along the highway, and their bikes were all just destroyed.
So what do you do if you have a road trip breakdown? So think about that. You're planning your trip, or you're just even driving across country or even across state a few hours. Are you ready? Are you prepared? What happens if you're driving and you do break down? I mean, I think about it. Okay, I have a cell phone. Do you just assume that you can call somebody? What if you are, what if you have a flat tire? What if it's nighttime? What if you're sitting on the side of the road? I mean, there's all these things you got to think about. I myself have had a chance to have a flat tire and then have a vehicle gel up. So I was sitting, I was able to get off the side of the road, but I can tell you, if you're on a interstate that's busy, and this state and city is not near as busy as driving like in Houston or something like that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Those big city people that are broke down, you drive by sometimes and you're just like, oh my gosh, you're fearing for your life being alongside the interstate.
Yeah. And you're
literally
sitting there, and I was waiting when I was gelled up. I'm sitting there in the winter and I'm waiting. I've got my hazard lights on. I got the truck lights on, and I'm off the road as far as I can get because it's a snowbank all the way down the side, and I couldn't get any further off. I was a good 2 feet from the edge, but people get on their phones, they don't pay attention, and all of a sudden they're drifting over, and they're assuming they're coming up on a car that's moving because the lights are on. They don't pay attention, and I'm close to an exit, so those flashing lights could just be brake lights coming on. They're zoned out. Who knows what they're doing? Who knows what they're on? I don't know. But as they're going, people were getting so close. I was just waiting for the mirror to come off. I kept looking, going, now what do I do if somebody runs into me here? It's like do you tuck and roll? What's the procedure for?
Russ is sitting in the passenger side.
I was thinking about getting out and just moving away from the vehicle because they get so close. And the same thing happened last year when I had a flat tire. I was on the side of the road and I was 3 feet off the road, and they kept coming way over. Thankfully, it was the right front tire, so I didn't have to be on the lane. But people don't.
The
pay
move over
attention.
law should apply. Maybe it does in a lot of states to a broken down vehicle as much as a law enforcement
Anything
vehicle.
with flashing, displaying, it says displaying flashing yellow lights. Well, the back of my truck has yellow lights that flash.
I'm
when
curious
you
about the
cross it.
legality of that, because I would hope those laws are written in such a way. I've never looked into that before.
I don't know about
But
the
you
law,
should use
but
the
it's
same thought process as
courtesy.
giving clearance to somebody that's alongside the road.
Yeah, it was quite crazy, but
But if you're going to be broke down alongside the road, being prepared, we'll talk a little more about that in the show, but having the right stuff with you, knowing who to call, and it hasn't gotten any easier now because of the availability of help
That's true.
is less. And I can tell you about some scenarios we've heard about recently over the police scanners and stuff that my dad has, and there's some reasons to be concerned, and make sure you have a plan.
that's for sure. Under the Hood will be back in just a second. You can call us at 866-594-4150. Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivant's. Welcome back to the Under the Hood Show. Call us at 866-594-4150, and we'll get you on the air with myself and Shannon Nordstrom. We're going to go to the phone right now, and we are going to talk to Mike, who has a 2006 Honda Odyssey. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well. Just a quick side note before I get to my question.
Yeah.
Talking about vehicles that aren't designed to pull things. Well, we were in Texas a couple of years ago. 2 different occasions we saw Dodge Caravan pulling a car trailer with a full-size vehicle, and I thought, oh, that transmission is just whining.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the other day in one of our local interchanges, I on Veterans Parkway here locally, I pulled up coming out of Sioux Falls, and meeting me at the intersection, and I really felt for the people, was a Ford Windstar van. Chris would appreciate this, and they were pulling a U-Haul behind it. I'm guessing my view was that they were probably moving, trying to get somewhere. I mean, that's what I felt when I saw it. There was like a family in there, and they had hot fluid shooting out the bottom of
The vent on the trans?
and it was just steam rolling up underneath it, and they were trying to get somewhere. But I just felt so bad because I'm sure for this situation, just what my visual was, and maybe I was stereotyping, is that this was their life moving and their family trying to get somewhere. And that's just how I felt. And and they were caught up in traffic going the other way, and it was just, yeah, you see that sometimes, and people will do what they need to do sometimes to get where they need to go.
Take it out of overdrive
Yeah, I mean,
and slow down.
Yeah, gosh darn it. So what's going on with the Iliad and the Odyssey here?
Nothing's going on with it. I'm due for another timing belt change here in about 10,000 miles. My mechanic that originally did the first change, he swore when you go with the new water pump on a Honda, you go with the OEM water pump. Do you concur with that?
Well, no, not necessarily. Water pump for sure. You definitely want to put the whole timing belt component kit on there, which is going to be
Of course.
the water pump, the rollers, the timing belt, all that stuff. But if you're using a Gates timing belt kit that has all those components, you're fine there. There are many of other companies that make them as well, but Gates is kind of synonymous with water. I mean, the water pumps, belts, the
Hoses.
idler pulleys, hoses. They've been doing that forever, and in fact, a little secret, they make a lot of those for the OEMs too. So, if you're buying an OEM part and the OEM is $210 and the Gates one is $112, could be the same one. And a lot of times, how do you tell? Well, you look at that factory OEM pump real close. Sometimes it'll have a little logo hidden on there somewhere that just gives you a secret of what it is. I got a part the other day, it was yesterday, an air conditioning door, and I believe it was a Standard Products door, but on the end of the shaft, it had a Dorman Products logo. Didn't say Dorman, but it had the Dorman wings on there. I went, yeah, this is a Dorman product.
So they're making that for
Yeah, and I thought maybe it was boxed wrong, and then I went back and I looked at the website from our supplier, and sure enough, that logo's on the exploded picture in the view. So that's who it's being made for. But
Did your mechanic say for what particular reason he was? We both agree the OEM water pump is going to be great. I mean, obviously it's a good product. It's OEM Honda is top of the line. Did he express why? Just was it his concern about the labor and the time involved to be there doing that operation? That why would you want to go with a part that may not be of OEM quality?
Well, I think so, because he said if you're going to go for it, get the OEM one, then it's going to be reliable. And I know there's a lot of different schools of thought on that, just like you guys explained. So that answers my question, though. I won't necessarily go with OEM this next time. I will go with a Gates.
Well, I would tell you this from my experiences and just talking with people on this show and doing my own stuff and our shop, what Russ will do. Just him and I have talked about this stuff. There are times for every part type. You go to your supplier, and oftentimes there'll be 3 levels available of a part at different price points, and there are times that it makes sense to use the lower price point with the situation you're in, the budget somebody's in. But there's also times where you're into a critical operation and you want to be able to make sure that, while I'm in there doing that water pump, which is a big job, that's probably not the place to pick the lowest price point in the catalog. You want to be able to you want to pick the quality vendor, OEM vendor, and make sure that you get a good long-term repair made, because you don't want to be, because you're going to ruin your engine if it goes bad. That's all there is to it. So you can't take that chance.
Does that help you out, Mike?
It sure did. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. We're going to go right back to the phones, and we're going to talk to Andrew in Oklahoma with a 2011 Lexus. How you doing, Andrew?
Doing great. How are you fellows doing?
All right. What you got going on with the Lexus?
Okay. The car is in great shape. It's been garage kept. It sits in the garage each night. The wife drives it to work. It goes into a garage there. It's driven on good roads, but I've got a rattle in the right front, and I can't seem to find it. I'm doing jerking and pulling and tapping on stuff with a mallet, trying to find where this rattle is, and it's just not showing its ugly face.
What model of Lexus is this?
If maybe it's an LS460 all-wheel drive.
If so it rattles just going down the road, right, over light bumps?
Light bumps, and if you hit something that's got some robust edges on it, it will rattle more, but it doesn't have any thumping to it. I've replaced the boots on the CV joints up front. Of course, I pulled them out, cleaned them, relubricated them, put them back together. Everything is snug in the CVs. The bearings seem to be in good shape. It's got good brakes on it. I'm just not finding anything loose. And I'm wondering if maybe you guys have got some experience with this particular type of a scenario.
Yeah, when we don't see anything loose right away when we're doing an inspection on a suspension, we will look at other things like power steering hoses and lines and wiring harnesses that might be close to the body that vibrate around. Air conditioning hoses, that happens a lot to us. So we look at those and bend them out of the way. Yeah, flapping around, and we secure those if needed. And then the other trick we do is we open up both the doors, and we get a person on each side and rock the car using the end of the door. Not so hard to bend the hinges, but just rock it that way. Gives us a little more leverage. And I was doing one Tuesday this week, and by rocking it at the end of the door like that, we got it to duplicate the click, 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 and it was a sway bar bushing, not the end link, but we couldn't do it with the doors closed. So that's one way you can do it. And
you mean we don't have a 4-post shaker like the NASCAR teams do at the shop, where we can just put it up there and just shake it like we're going down the road?
Nope.
Well, check that out.
I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be good. But no, check that out. Check out the suspension sway bar links are a commonplace. The top plates of the struts are a place you don't always see. Check that out. And never forget that you could have something that is in the dash area that does it too, that can dwarf itself or morph itself into a noise that sounds like it's coming from the front end or the front suspension.
Sure. Does that help you out, Andrew?
Yeah. And Well, yeah, but I'm definitely hearing it echo off of the curb. So, for instance, if I'm driving along and I've got the right side window down, I can hear it echoing off the curb.
Let's hold this over to the break here. We've got a break coming up here, and let's talk a little bit more about this. So just hang tight if you can.
Got some ideas here for you.
Okay.
All right, Under the Hood will be back in a few minutes. Call us at 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is brought to you by Sturdivant's.
Make a radio appointment each week to hear the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show.
Welcome back to the Under the Hood Show. I'm Russ Evans along with Shannon Nordstrom. Call us at 866-594-4150, and we'll get you on the air and answer your questions for free or double your free back. We're going to go back and talk to Andrew on the phone from Oklahoma with a 2011 Lexus who has a rattle that he can hear with the window down when he is close to the side of something.
He intrigued us enough that we held him over the break because we didn't feel like we really answered the question. And he sounds like he seems like he has been at this for a bit, and we want to help you solve the mystery. So this, the mystery of the clinking Lexus. How long has this been doing this?
I think it's probably been doing it for about 7 or 8 months. And the wife is very picky. Oh my God. She hears every little thing and she focuses on it like a microscope.
Well, fixing the car is cheaper than changing wives. So let's see if we can help you figure this out. The noise is at a certain speed. Can you hear it going through a drive-through?
I would say no.
No, they pitch their...
If you're rolling along, you're going to hear it. If you're at highway speed, you're going to hear it. Probably not a drive-through. If it's like smooth pavement and there's no transition between the scenes, all that stuff.
Less potholes in the drive-through.
So the things that can make noise. Let's talk about the things that could make noise. Russ and I were, always get these questions, and they're what they call them. I always bring this up. What they call the rattles and stuff in Lincoln School?
NVH, noise, vibration, and harshness.
Yeah.
Or someone sitting in the back seat rattling some cans to drive you nuts.
That was from warranty school. I remember Russ telling that story all the time. But you've got one of the most common things we'll talk about is the sway bar, and that is capable of making noise even when you're going straight, but it can sometimes be expanded upon when you're turning a little bit or putting pressure on the wheels one direction or the other. The plastic shields underneath can drive you crazy. These new cars have so many shields underneath them that under certain circumstances, if they don't get all secured correctly after maintenance or service, you can get those shields or splash shields that will chatter against each other at certain speeds when the wind hits them just right or whatever direction it might be.
And this car has lots of them.
That's something. That's something to look into. Make sure that's all attached well, or if you got any clips that are gone or missing or loose, make sure and get that all reattached well and check into that. The CV axle's probably good maintenance, but that's not something that's typically going to make the noise I think you're describing.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that
You're
either.
Right, yeah.
And
I did do struts on it about a year ago on the front. I did the uppers on the struts as well.
Okay.
And everything seemed to be in really good shape whenever I had all that stuff apart and open and was right there.
Those Lexuses are such cruisers too. They are cruisers. That's the derivative of the old LS400. And back in the day when Russ and I first met, that's how we met, was over a Lexus LS400 that he was doing repair on at a radio shop. That was a flood car that got fresh water into it that we brought back to life. So this 460 is a derivative of that very successful car for Lexus and Toyota, and they are road cruisers and they are awesome.
Oh, you're king of the road in that car. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you don't think of that car as being a rattler. The pretty good fit and finish on that car. Sorry, I cut you off there. You were starting to say maybe something else you'd already done or thought about.
Well, what I was going to say is that the car is so full of padding and insulation and just robust silence. You're cruising down the road in a vacuum of silence on a sheet of glass. And so the car is just ultra smooth and highly refined. And the fact that there's a rattle in it that I can't find is pretty tough, because I'm a professional mechanic. I don't work on cars for a living. I work on medium and heavy equipment. So cars are just another bucket of bolts to me.
Yeah, well, you've got the mechanical thought process in your head of how things work, and that's one step ahead from most people that don't do that kind of stuff.
Well, if you think something's rattling, like if it's under the hood, like a hose or something, duct tape works great for a, or those Velcro tie straps just for a temporary to see, oh, does that work? Nope. Does that work? Nope. Try something, try different things. But
okay. And so along those lines, I've got an idea for you. The foam padding that you put on your air conditioner lines on your house, use some of that stuff. It's real mushy but firm foam, and it will cure a rattle.
That's a good one. But check is it coming from the brakes possibly? Russ mentioned
brake rattle, anti-rattle clips could be worn out on that too, or broken, and it could be the brake pad could be bouncing in there and rattling. One way to tell there, touch the brake. If you touch the brake and the noise goes away, that's a good indication.
Okay. It's not there. I've already
already been down that road. All right.
All right.
Wait, is the car have the original factory wheels on it?
It does have factory wheels, and it's not the center caps.
You knew where I was going. I like this.
I knew that.
This is a fun game we're playing here.
All right, we're gonna
have to disengage in the game.
I think we're moving on.
We're gonna have to leave you alone with your. Russ, would your chassis ears help at all with that?
Maybe. We've got some earphones we use that we clip microphones on different places on the car to listen, but that could help.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can get closer.
Well, and I've actually got a GoPro.
Yeah.
I've actually got a GoPro that I'll put in place and watch things while a machine is running, and that's been successful for me.
That's a great idea too.
Yeah.
I don't.
You guys have given me a couple of good ideas though, and I'm gonna look into it. And if I find it, I'll call you back.
We do want to call back. I want a definitive. I found this, that there was a mouse had left a bag of peanuts underneath the passenger fender or something.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So a question. I don't know if you guys will be able to answer this for me right off, but is there a station in the Oklahoma City area?
There is.
You guys broadcast?
Go to underthehoodshow.com and you'll see our stations that we broadcast from there, as well as the podcast and YouTube and everything. But
there's a station that is right outside OK City and broadcasts into the city, no problem.
Yep.
And also the podcast and YouTube all the time.
Okay, so I was basically road tripping and found you on the radio.
Awesome.
And tuned in.
Yep. Oh, we appreciate it.
Oh, we're glad you're here, and thanks for being a hoodie.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go right back to the phone, and we're going to talk to Paul, who has a 2000 Ford Contour. How you doing, Paul?
Okay.
Okay. It's broke.
So it has a bad pulsation in the brake pedal, and the rotors are not in very good condition. And so I've been trying to remove the rotors. I started with a hammer, and that was unsuccessful. And I got a pretty good-sized 2-job puller and put on there and tightened it up to what I thought the puller would take, and put an air chisel on the back and put a little heat. I was leery to put much heat, afraid I might damage the wheel bearing, but I still haven't got it to come off.
Some of those have a threaded hole. If you look at the face of the rotor, between the lug nuts, they'll have a threaded hole. It's normally where a screw goes in. They'll hold them on. Did you have those on your rotors, or have they been changed?
No, these don't have the threaded hole.
Oh no. Well, if those are gone, then you're doing the right thing. We use some heat. We use an impact. Usually, though, when you beat on them that hard, you're probably going to have to replace the wheel bearings in there because you're going to have some noise, because those are the pressed-in wheel bearings on the front of that. Your other option for that would be to get a hold of a certified auto recycler, car-part.com. Get yourself a couple used front knuckle assemblies that are complete. That way you can just unbolt the whole thing. It's going to come off with yours is going to come off with the rotor and the bearing and the hub, all of it with the knuckle. Then just put them on. Then you can put new rotors on, because they're not going to come to you with a rotor attached. If they do,
They probably couldn't get it off either, and you just asked to return it.
Yeah, I don't want those. Just when you order them, say I want them without the rotor on there, because that's...
You might consider even ordering something from somebody in the South.
Yes.
That doesn't have the corrosion issues that we do up in the northern Rust Belt.
When you told me you had a Ford Contour, a 2000, that had rotors stuck on it, I just kind of cringe. If you're watching us on YouTube, you'd see like, because we've had that problem.
Contour, Mystique, some called it a mistake. Those cars were pretty famous for the rotors getting seized on them in our world.
Yeah,
dismantlers were never a fan either.
They just build them really tight, and then they get corrosion in them, and they stick. I wish I had better news for you on that one. Do you have a different car as well that you had a question about?
So, one more question on this one.
Sure.
Is it possible to cut into that rotor and drive a chisel or something in there and maybe start a crack in them? Or do you think that's a waste of time?
No, we have done that as well. You got to be careful you don't grind up the hub. But what we have done is we'll get all our safety equipment on and then take a high-speed grinder, like a cutoff wheel grinder, and we will cut on the outside face of it parallel to the flat surface of the rotor. So we're not cutting into it, but we're cutting across, so we're removing some of the surface of the outside of the rotor. And when we start to expose the hub underneath it, then we can get in there with an air chisel between the two. That's a possibility too. But like I said, with all that impact on there, a lot of times we kill the bearings. I mean, you could try to put it back together without putting bearings in it and see what it does, and then you may have to swap them out.
Put a lot of stress on that bearing when you start beating on that rotor like that.
Yeah, and they've got some years on them already.
Yeah. So the other one's a 2006 Nissan Xterra that appears to have gotten transmission oil in the radiator and coolant in the transmission. And so he changed the oil. A friend of mine brought it to me. And so I see online people say you can flush them. I just wondered, I was going to put a new filter in it and try flushing it. Do you think that will work, or is that just a waste of time?
Well, we have had in the past, and it's been a long time since we've cleaned up, flood car transmissions in order to see if they were good to sell. They're just different these days. They get moisture in them, and they're pretty much
it's hard on them.
Done. So, but back in the 90s, it was pretty common, and they'd be fine. But we would have to flush out those transmissions 5-6 times sometimes to get them really clean, and then the heat would boil off the remaining moisture, but you really have to get them clean. But if you've got a newer one like that Xterra, an 06 Xterra, the clutches are pretty much water soluble in there, the glue that holds them and bonds them. So if it's got a lot of antifreeze in there, you could try to flush it out a couple times, but that's a more expensive fluid in that Nissan, and it's going to cost money to do it.
Well, and you got to find. Maybe I missed that part, but find the root of the problem. Because most likely it's got a bad radiator cooler in it. That's what I missed that apparently. But just make sure for other listeners that may not have heard that. The connection's not great on this call, but get a cooler that breaks in the radiator because the tranny fluid runs through the end of the radiator in a cooling system to keep it cooled down. But if that exchanger breaks, then you can get cross contamination between antifreeze and tranny fluid. And yes, they are flushed out often. But the chances can be that you do end up with premature wear on that transmission or sometimes a failure.
Yeah, and the other thing is you want to make sure you get that engine flushed out well, too. That's a little easier because if it's really bad, you could use some radiator cleaner. Justice Brothers makes a radiator cleaner that will help dissolve some of that oil. You put that in there with water instead of coolant. You run it. You flush it until it's completely clean, and then you have to flush out the water to put coolant in there because you don't want it to freeze up with water in there and the rust protection, things like that. So,
but that little bit of transmission fluid in the coolant is less of an emergency than the coolant in the transmission fluid.
With oil, people ask us all the time, what happens if I have oil in my system because of radiators? A failing cooler in a radiator is common, and what will that oil do in my engine? Well, the oil won't do anything to the metal in the engine. Doesn't really even hurt the thermostat. The biggest problem it has is the water pump seal. If it has not a metal bushing, like a bronze bushing in it, but if it has a nylon or rubber seal in it, and also rubber hoses, because oil is a great solvent for rubber hoses and will deteriorate them. They'll become soft and they can fail. So you want to get all the oil out that you can. But again, like Shannon said, it's not as serious of an issue as
you don't want to leave it, but
your trans.
You got to get that. You got to get that oil out of the coolant out of the transmission fluid immediately.
Does that help you out there?
Yeah, that's a lot of help. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, we'll talk soon. See ya. Hopefully, he calls back with some good news that worked, and he flushed it out, and it's been working for 1,000 miles, and we've had no issue with it.
Hopefully, he calls back with a better speakerphone.
Yeah, we can't help all those calls, but
we're glad to have him on the air.
The content is good.
Yeah.
Well, we have to take it. We got another call on the line, and we're going to get to them right after this break. We'll be right back on Under the Hood, 866-594-4150. And producer Doug Mashik. This episode of Under the Hood is brought to you by Sturdivant's.
Car feeling ill? Don't want to spread it to your wallet? Call the Motor Medics now for free advice.
Whew. Here we go. 866-594-4150. We're going right to the phone, and we're going to talk to Harvey, who has a 2017 Ford F-150 with a towing question. How you doing, Harvey?
Real good. Hey, I just recently bought the pickup. It has the 2.7 engine in it. It has the towing package and stuff.
Oh.
And I really like it. It's really got snort. It does nice. But I'm going to be pulling to the Black Hills with a trailer with one four-wheeler in the front and a side-by-side. And do you just put it in tow haul and pull? Like when I drive it down the road, I had it on a snowmobile trailer a while back. And it goes right up to sixth gear, and just it stays there with ease. But is it supposed to stay out of overdrive, or is it just a characteristic of it or should you be running it in that manual mode and stay in fifth?
These vehicles, I would say, I don't want to give it a year range. Let's call it a modern vehicle for towing. And if it's got a tow haul mode built into it, use it. Yeah. That computer is set up to give the best. They're going to make adjustments in some of these in the engine control. They're going to make adjustments in the transmission control.
Try driving my truck. It's all manual. Mm-hmm. I mean, automatic trans. But, think about the blessing we got with these things that just go.
Just
push a button.
Let it do its work. And you might think sometimes that it's running more RPMs than you would like. Like when Chevy came out with their, I think back to like the 88, 89, 90 Chevy pickups, four-wheel drives, the series right now that people are starting to restore again already. They had folks burning up transmissions left and right on them. They were getting them hot. They were pushing oil out the dipsticks. They were having fires.
They had to put a lock on them. They were getting so hot.
Yeah, they were having all kinds of problems,
out.
And because people were leaving them in overdrive and pulling them, and they were building up so much heat that it was boiling the fluid. And so, as they've refined and been able to refine with the transmissions and the control systems, and they put in that tow haul mode, if you're hooking something on the back, unless it's like a dump trailer you're going 10 miles with or something that weighs 500 pounds, I would use the tow haul mode and just let the truck do its thing. Now, one thing I learned, and I've learned it with two different vehicles, two different ways. One surprised me one way and one surprised me the other. Look up for your exact VIN number, not what the advertisement you saw on TV was, but for your exact truck, what the capacity is. So you at least know what that number is.
It's
then
8,800 somehow.
Okay, 8,800?
Yeah, I believe 8,800 and some pounds.
That sounds about right. It's to me with that 2.7, you had me putting some question marks in my head.
He's got the higher gears. He doesn't have 410s in there then, but that's still a pretty good tow rating.
It is. It is a pretty good tow rating.
For 2.7.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy, isn't it? But then spend $5 or $10 at your local truck stop and go use the scale and see what your load actually weighs.
Yeah, weigh the whole thing and then take the trailer off and weigh it again.
I bought my first new truck here that I got for pulling my snowmobile trailer the first time, and I overbought tow rating because when I went and actually weighed my trailer and my equipment, it was way less weight than I thought. For some reason, in my head I had the weight miscalculated. So when I bought the next truck, I don't tow that often. I didn't buy as heavy of a tow rating. I kind of wish I would have because it doesn't tow as well. But that's something that I want everybody to, if they're going to tow, know your tow rating and weigh your load. It's just cost you a few bucks, and it can give you peace of mind to kind of know where you're at, that you're not way out of whack with your rating. And then the general rule of thumb that you'll hear from a lot of people is to stay within 80% of that tow rating. And so that you've got 20% wiggle room for that unexpected cargo, heavy wind that you might run into. Just leave yourself some wiggle room. But no, push that baby into the tow haul mode, and if your weight is in the right capacity range, have some fun.
Yeah, and another question I had, you can, on your dash, you can punch some stuff and it comes up with transmission temperature.
Yes.
What is considered hot on the temperature on the gauge?
With the coolers and everything from the factory, they're going to run similar to your engine coolant. But if you start pushing up hotter than the engine's running at 220 and that thing's normally running 200 to 210, 215 in the trans. If it starts pushing up hotter than that, you need to start slowing down.
What I watch on mine when I'm towing, and I could be completely just goofy the way I do things, but I watch for quick temperature increases. When you start seeing a climbing temperature,
slow it down.
You got to back it down. Something's happening because you're going to hit a moderate temperature based on the air temperature, based on the load, and it'll usually get to that temperature and it'll hold. You'll crest a hill and you'll go up a little bit, but when you start seeing that temperature that it's moving fast, that's time to back it off a little bit and get yourself into a different gear. Get some more engine RPMs, less transmission load, and let that thing cool down a little bit. And sometimes even just coast it down and just stop for a while and let everything cool down so you don't overheat that thing. But that's what I'd watch for. Yeah, I'm oftentimes in that 200 to 210, 215 range on the tranny, and I don't worry about it too much if everything is just staying there.
All right, we got to take a break. We're out of show for today, for this hour anyways. Thanks, Harvey.
Guys.
You bet. Take care. All right, we're going to take off. This is the end of hour 1. We'll be right back with hour 2. Get a hold of us at 866-594-4150. We want to talk to you on the next hour of Under the Hood. Under the Hood is brought to you by Sturtevant's.
You're listening to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show with the Motor Medics, Shannon Nordstrom and Russ the Super Tech Evans. Shannon is an ASE engine and parts specialist, and Russ is an ASE Master Certified Technician with extensive factory drivability training. Join the Motor Medics for fun and free automotive advice with real-world solutions to everyday automotive problems. The Under the Hood Show is heard weekly on this and other great radio stations across the U.S. Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
With Russ Evans, this is Shannon Nordstrom, thanking you for tuning in to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show. Have a great day, and remember, PTLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome back to the Under the Hood Show, 866-594-4150. We're glad you joined us. I'm Russ Evans along with Shannon Nordstrom.
Hey, welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
Chris has bailed on us today.
Yeah.
I'm gonna rag on you, Chris.
Yeah.
That's all right.
He's just heavy lifting. He's got the best of him. He's been holding the show up long enough. It got to him, and he just had to go to the chiropractor.
He carries the world on his shoulders.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Hey, Russ, on a recent show, we were talking about, I don't want to get too much further into it, but we were talking about driving down the road. We were talking about towing. We were talking about breakdowns, and we never got back to talking about breaking down on the interstate and some of the challenges nowadays.
What do you do?
Exactly. And so we've been running into a situation in our market, and you might want to check in yours, where people with like AAA, I'll use a name brand, been a great road service for years and years and years, but their network is developed out of independent arrangements that they have around the country to do the emergency service work and towing for them. And in our market, as of recent, there was a lapse, and I don't know where it's at now. I'm not in those negotiations, so I don't know. But there was a lapse in coverage in our metro area. And so we were hearing on the police scanner. My dad has got one that he keeps track of for some of the things that he does. And there was someone broke down waiting for a AAA assistance for a flat tire. And the nearest contracted person at that time that could do it was a couple hours out on being able to do that. And so those roadside assistance programs, when you check into them, I know the manufacturers have them. There's, AAA has been one that's been around for a long time, but you do want to check and ask them, hey, who is the servicing agent in your market?
And is there a time guarantee, or is it as good as Amazon's, where they used to say, oh, it'll be there in 2 days. Now they just say, oh, it's Prime, you'll get it.
Because in this example, if I remember correctly, it was the Sioux Falls market, and the help had to come out of Brookings, South Dakota, the home of South Dakota State University, to the north of us, and that's 45 miles away on the interstate, 50 miles basically on the interstate. And Russ had a car that had to be towed for AAA, and that towing service came out of a vendor that was south of Sioux Falls, about the same distance, maybe a half hour south of Sioux Falls, that had to come and tow a car from Sioux Falls to the repair shop. And so that hasn't always been the case. Typically, those large metros, you'll have one or two service providers in the market. But what we're running into out on the interstate is this: the cost of owning and operating and insurancing towing operations is expensive. The rates, I'm sure, that want to be paid by a national contract are going to be less,
and they're paying crazy money. I did ask the guy, how much did they pay you for this tow? And I went, are you kidding me? Why didn't they just pay more to the local vendor and keep them happy?
So these things are going to continue to happen, and I think you'll see some interruptions in service. So you're going to want to just make sure you're checking and know what the availability is. But also on a weekend, if you break down on a weekend anymore, there just aren't as many places that are open. Now, I've heard some amazing stories of people on I-90 across South Dakota, that there are companies out there. I know the Overwigs out around the middle of the state there. They do a great job. And there's other ones that they work really hard helping people off the interstates. There's a lot of good shops that are near the interstates that help people, but they are getting fewer and fewer, and the bills are going to be higher and higher because the technicians and the people they need to put out on the road, their rates have just went up what it costs to hire those people, to train those people, the equipment that they need to do it safely, to be out on the road safely. You're going to want to do that. Even some of the big overnight truck repair centers that used to always be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they're not doing the Sundays anymore. You'll find they'll have an emergency breakdown guy you can call, but you're at the mercy of their schedule. So it's just different. So you definitely want to be planning ahead. Make sure you've got the things with you that you need. If you need to change a tire, I got something for my snowmobile trailer recently, and I wish I could remember the name of it, but basically it's a little portable ramp if you have tandem axles on your trailer. And so you can drive up onto the ramp with one of your good tires and lift the other tire off the ground so you can change that tire that went bad and put your spare on easily. I keep a set of Milwaukee rechargeable tools in a bag in my trailer. And so I can get it done easily if I need to.
Be prepared with the stuff you need to get you to the next exit. That's the bottom line. You gotta do it. So to keep yourself safe and sane. So We're going right to the phones, 866-594-4150, and we're going to talk to Chris in Colorado with a 2010 F-150. How you doing, Chris? How you doing, Chris?
Yes.
You got a 2010 F-150. What's going on with it?
Yes, I do. Well, I let it sit for a couple weeks using my work truck. The battery went dead. I went out there one day to start it, and I put the cables on it, tried jump starting it, and turned the key, everything, all the accessories work, lights, windows roll down, everything. But can't hear the fuel pump coming on, and when you crank, there's no crank at all. And I ended up changing out the battery, got a new battery, changed it out, same thing. I crawled underneath, and I tested the voltage going to the starter. It's got the 13 volts on the starter. And then test to go in the solenoid, and when you turn the key, there's just nothing going to the solenoid, no voltage at all. I don't know if it's a mobilizer issue or PCM. Decided to go out, need some advice.
When you're turning the key to the start position, have you noticed on the dash, is there a light that flashes, a lock, little picture of a lock that's flashing on there? Or a key that flashes?
I've noticed that there's a little wrench that comes on now. And then my traction control will come on, the little flash.
But not a picture of a key or a lock that's blinking on there?
No.
Because that would indicate security is active on there. With a scanner, you could read and see if security is active, so that would be important to do that way. The other thing that you've got to look for on a scanner, when it's plugged in, we look to see what the state of the transmission range sensor is, because we've had some of those fail. It needs to be showing park or neutral, which would allow it to start, and then we can look and see if the starter relay is showing that it's in the crank position when you're turning that key. The most common things that we see on these vehicles, starter is the most common, but you've ruled that out because you've got no voltage down there. The next common thing on that,
because he has voltage down there.
Yeah. The next most common thing is that range selector in the transmission. We've had some problems with those.
I've shifted through, and I've tried starting in neutral, no issue, and then I've put it in each gear and tried cranking it just to see if it would do anything, and still nothing. No.
We had another caller with a similar age truck call in on this, and they had exhausted a lot of different ideas. He was a neighbor of ours, as a matter of fact. And I think if we got down to it with that, we found that there was an issue with the actual hot cable, where on one end or the other, under certain circumstances, that thing was corroded up inside of it, and then it would lose continuity. So you could check it one time, it would have continuity at voltage, and then under certain loads, it would just zap out. But it seems to me there was some sort of a module or something, Russ, that had to do with the starting circuit, another component. I'm just trying to remember that situation. There was another component that would cause that not to start. I'm trying to remember what that was on that 10 F-150. It's not clicking with me right now.
Well, you've got the immobilizer, which is part of the key, and the body control module and the engine control module. And then you've got the starter relay. And as long as the transmission, if it's telling the computer that it's in neutral or a park position, it will allow it to send that voltage to start if the security will allow it. So it's kind of one of those reverse engineer and work your way back from the starter to the key switch and see what you got. If you don't have a scanner, if you got a scanner, it's a little easier because you can put it in the crank position and see if the key is indicating crank position and if it's trying to energize that starter relay. If it's not, then we've got to look at the security portion.
Crawl that power cable and ground cable and see if there's any other little plastic chunks of something on there, that some sort of a module regulator. Just some sort of regulator. It seems to me there was something on there that was a failure point that might have been part of that issue. I usually can recall that stuff pretty quick, but that's what I would do, is give that hot and ground cables a good inspection, make sure everything is connected well. And, you might just, if you don't get any further, it could be that you're just intermittently, because this doesn't happen all the time, correct?
Yeah, it never happened before. And then I let it sit and let that battery die down. And speaking of relays, I can hear the relay clicking on the passenger side. So when I do turn the key, I can hear the click of the relay, but it's just, there's no crank, and
so you
not
can
sending any power to the starter.
You can hear a click of the relay down in that passenger side footwell area.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So that's where the body control module is on these vehicles, and they do have another issue: rust through the floor, and also rust because the windshields, some of them had a leakage. They didn't seal up real well at the factory, or if they broke and were replaced, they didn't get sealed. And we've replaced a number of those body control modules down there. The fuse box assembly is what it is. The gem module fuse box, it's all one unit. So if you pull that cover off down there, that plastic footwell cover off, and then take the one bolt out and pull that thing forward, look and see if it's been wet behind there and it's rusty. If it is, that may be your problem. It starts out as an intermittent no start, and then it won't work. Other times you can't shift it out of gear, all because you get some rust and corrosion behind there. I just did one a few weeks ago.
But the good thing, though, is if not good, because you'd like to have your vehicle just start and go, but if it's now doing it all the time, this can be found. If it's doing it all the time now, that this can be found. Because the guy that had the earlier problem that I worked with, that one, it was intermittent, and it drove him crazy. It was if it's dead now, it can be found. You just got to, like Russ said, reverse engineer it.
Does that help you out a little bit?
And I didn't know if it would be PCM not sending their immobilizer or something like that.
If you got a click down there,
push the key fob and it locks and unlocks and all that.
If the relay, look and see if the relay that's clicking is labeled as starter relay. If it is, then the security is working and the PCM's allowing it to energize that relay. And from there, it goes right down to the starter. So you can trace it from that box down to the starter. The wires come out the front side of it.
And I know the truck is pretty rusty underneath. It came from Oklahoma, and when I bought it, it had a lot of rust underneath. So I
double check that
fuse panel off, and just check the backside. Because I have pulled the relay, and I took it apart, made sure there was no corrosion or anything inside, and it was all pretty clean. But yeah, you get on the backside of that panel, and there might be something there.
Double check it. All right. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Thank you, guys.
You bet. Take care.
Bye.
All right. We're going to take a short break. Super brief, right? And we'll be right back on the Under the Hood Show, 866-594-4150. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivant's.
Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
866-594-4150. This is the Under the Hood Show. I'm Russ Evans along with Shannon Nordstrom here to take your call. Thanks for joining us. We're going to go right to the phone, and we are going to talk with Gary in Mississippi, who has a 2010 Chevy Silverado. How you doing, Gary?
Oh, not too bad today. How you guys doing?
Well, this is great. Weather's great. It's hot. It's humid. It's a typical South Dakota go right from winter to summer kind of year.
Oh, yeah. I lived in North Dakota for a while. I understand.
Well, and you're in Mississippi, so I sympathize there. It's
hot and sweltery.
Very hot. Very hot.
Well, today's the first day of hurricane season, so we're all looking forward to that. You know how it is.
We just want a couple drops of rain. Just a couple.
How can we help you today?
Well, I bought this truck used about, I guess, 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
2010 Silverado. It's got a 5.3 in it. It's got it's that 4.8 engine, to run 4 cylinders at low traffic or 8 cylinders at high speed like that. I started to develop what I call a bucking in it at low speeds, 35 to 55 miles an hour. So I took it back to the Chevy dealer. I've been dealing with them for a long time with my various vehicles. And they discovered the tranny was shot. There was metal everywhere.
Yep.
So we replaced the transmission and started driving it home, and the engine started bucking. It was like a hesitation in the engine every once in a while. So I basically circled it right back and said, "Hey, fix this damn thing,"
Yeah.
And they did some research on it and everything, and pulled the plugs on it. It had about 48,000 miles on the plugs. They were E3s, and they were all carboned over. So replaced all the plugs and the plug wires, and it seemed to be running pretty good. But now when I pull up to a stoplight, I can feel almost like a miss in it. I can watch the tachometer, and it drops off just a little bit every time. And it's got a new battery in it. I just can't figure this thing out. It's just aggravating as heck because it all seems to come together at once. I don't know where to go with it anymore. I'm not getting any lights, and I'm not getting any engine codes.
Yeah, if you're not setting any codes, it's usually an indication you're not getting any kind of a misfire, at least not anything that's often enough to set a code. It has to do it at a certain period, even if it's random, often enough in order to set a code. But you should be able to look at the misfire monitor and see if it's showing a miss.
Yeah. Like I said, I've had all that run through, and it doesn't show anything. So
you can have an engine, as an engine wears, as it gets a little older, you can have issues with those lifters on those AFM engines. You can have valves that are starting to get carboned up.
He called it a 4A, but it's an active fuel management system is what they call that.
Yep. So,
yeah.
It could have even a dirty fuel system, and a dirty fuel system can cause it to act that way as well.
We've done that too. We've done the fuel system treatment on it. It's only been a week or so, and I haven't run it a lot. I guess maybe I need to get some more miles.
Oh, yeah.
See if that helps it improve.
A couple hundred after a cleaning is typical.
My only other option that I was thinking about was a coil, and I checked on them. They run about $50 a piece.
Yeah.
So,
if you buy a set of 8, you can get them in cheaper as a package, like sometimes half price. And a lot of times we'll do 8 because it's kind of like, with those, you do a whole set if they start to fail, because they are a common failure item on these as they get old. I mean, you've got 14 years on it, so it's possible.
How many miles are totally on this truck? I said we cut you off a couple times there, but how many miles totally on the truck?
A little bit over 71,000.
Okay, so we're talking about a very low mileage truck, and that's the types of problems you're having with like the transmission failure can happen, but they're usually good for 100, 150,000 miles pretty easily. This engine missing like this, you don't think you're being like overly sensitive to it. You seriously are feeling a miss, correct?
Well, I might be a little bit oversensitive with it since it did have the problems.
Right.
And I'm really, I guess I'm looking for something now.
What I would do is bring it back to your dealers and say, can you guys give me some peace of mind, and say, I'd like to have one of your technicians drive this with their scan equipment hooked to it, and just like Russ said, just monitor all the systems and make sure that everything is normal. Because there's things that they can see in the diagnostic data that would be not related to setting codes, just to make sure that all those systems are operating correctly. Is that what you'd recommend, Russ?
That's exactly what I do, just to verify and give yourself a little peace of mind in it.
Before you start spending any more money on it. I would think they'd be willing to do that for you, with the problems that you had, fairly soon into getting the truck.
Well, my only other thought was to actually buy one coil and start swapping it around.
That works too.
From cylinder to cylinder till the problem went away. But I do not like adding one new coil to a set. You know what I'm saying? I don't like putting a new piece in old equipment.
That's true. It should work, but that's a great way to test your coil, find out which is going on. So.
Well, if you knew particularly which cylinder was the misfire on, you could change the coils between and see if the problem moves. But you haven't yet identified.
That's what I was thinking.
And you haven't yet identified particularly which cylinder may be misfiring, or if it even is misfiring. So we got to get to a break here. But take and send it back to that dealer there, and just ask them if they'll look over the monitors and everything on it and see where they're at. I think they'll help you figure it out. But otherwise, with the heat, you probably need a new set of coils, possibly.
Oh well.
All right. Good luck with it.
Fortunately, the other vehicles are still running good, so.
That's good.
Okay. Hey, thanks a lot, guys. You've been a big help.
You bet. Take care.
You too.
All right. 866-594-4150. This is the Under the Hood Show. We'll be back in a minute.
Car feeling ill? Don't want to spread it to your wallet? Call the Motor Medics now for free advice.
866-594-4150. That's how you get a hold of us, right here, right now. And that's how Chris did it. Chris called us at that number, and we got him on the air like this. Here, push this button over here, Russ. This one, that one right there.
Normally there would be a Chris pushing that button, but he's off today. So
do that, and you were good to go. And now we talk to Chris. It's that simple. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
We couldn't be better. It's just
great.
The weather's nice. The calls are flowing. We feel like we're just full of automotive advice. Hopefully, some of it's actually good.
Yeah. No, it's a great day today.
What's up with the Silverado?
So my son bought a 2015 half-ton Silverado with a 5.3 V8 this winter.
Okay.
About 115,000 miles. Everything has been good so far. We talked to the previous owner. Seems to be well maintained. It was an older gentleman who traded it in. Anyways, he was driving out of town the other day, and check engine light came on. So he came back home, and I put my little scanner on it, and it has a code P06DA, which is oil pressure control solenoid open. And I tried to clear the code, and it won't let me clear it with my scanner. It's a permanent code. Research online and didn't come up with a lot. Any ideas what that might be?
Oh, yeah. I know how to cause it. I know if you over tow with a vehicle and it's got way too small an engine and you heat the oil so much up that you melt the solenoid off the front of the, the oil pump, it'll do that. It's a little harder to do that with a full-size truck, but they do fail. We haven't replaced a lot of these yet in the Chevy engines, but it's coming. I mean, it's a part that fails, so they have a variable speed oil pump. The diesels have been doing it for a while with theirs. The 5.3s, 6.2s, they're all running this variable pressure pump in order to make it work better. I think they're trying to overcome some of the issues they're having with lifters and the AFM systems and things like that. So they've gone to this solenoid, which the computer has full control over to raise and lower the pressure. If it's stuck on high pressure and it's at idle and you're listening to it, once it's warmed up and idled, you can kind of hear a whine, in the front because it's not supposed to be at that high pressure. If it's stuck on a low pressure, the pressure is going to be lower than what you want it to for the higher RPM driving loads. And if you're towing, you definitely want more oil flowing. So that could cause long-term damage that way as well. I don't think if it fails in the low position, it's going to cause any quick failing if you're just doing everyday driving, but I sure wouldn't do any towing with it as long as you have that code set in there. And I believe on most of those, you've got to take the front cover off the engine and the oil pan in order to get in there and change that. I can't remember on this one exactly where it was.
Is that be the first of 2014 late was the LT version of the direct injected 5.3, much improved I shouldn't say much improved, an improved engine over the previous generation. They made their improvements in their features that were much better, and you got a little better fuel economy out of it and more power out of it with the direct injection. And that oil pressure on the gauge, just kind of curious, did you guys notice, had you owned it long enough to notice if you had a change in the oil pressure reading itself?
He did notice it. So he stopped and kind of looked it over and turned around, and he said normally the oil pressure's running right around 40, and it was down maybe 25 or 30 on his way back into town. So he did notice that it was lower than normal.
Then it's dropped to the low range on there, so you'll want to get that fixed. Everyday cruising, it should be fine, but you get out on the highway with it and start tow with it, you're definitely going to have less pressure than you want, and that can cause some damage with it.
Okay, so he's okay to drive it for a few days here till we get it into a shop?
If it was my own vehicle, I would, if I wasn't doing any towing with it or driving it hard, because you still got oil pressure. Now, if your oil pressure dropped down under 20 pounds, under 15 pounds, I'd start getting a little bit more concerned with it.
And you're not hearing any audible noises that are different as far as any?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
No noises.
Yeah. It's important they get it fixed soon, though. You don't want to wait on that one.
Does that help you out a little bit?
Yeah. So is that part of the oil pump?
Solenoid? It's bolted to it. Yes.
So would it be smart to change the oil pump at this time, or just the solenoid?
I think you can change just the solenoid. That I don't believe you have to change the pump. But if we're wrong on that, which happens now and then a lot, so then you have to buy the whole pump. But I think you can change the solenoid separately.
When you get into the parts breakdown with the parts shop, they'll be able to see a diagram, hopefully, and tell you. And you can just look and see. All right, you get a good feel for it. But just looking at the diagrams, and you probably find that online too to take a look at it.
Yeah. So if we have to take the front cover off the engine, would it be smart to do the water pump at this time?
It's a 15-year. It's 8 years old. The water pumps are super expensive, and they don't fail that often. Plus, they're off to the side now. They're not as right there in the front. So, yeah, they're not the same. They don't use that same style pump on them. So, no, I think that's still the year behind. So, but no, we rarely do a pump on one of these, so I wouldn't mess with it.
Leave the water pump. Okay. All
right.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. What about your new app? I looked on the Google Play Store and I didn't find it. Where do I find that app at?
Under the Hood Show. It'll be on Google Play and on Apple as well. And it'll just say Under the Hood Show. Show the picture of the three of us on there. But I think I don't know if it's on the Google Play Store or if it's under the Google Music.
I searched on the Play Store and I didn't see it.
I'll double check. I haven't gone to the Play Store to look in a while, but it's definitely up there because it comes off our Libsyn app, and they're both still active. I still got to pay for them.
We will confirm our details, and we'll appreciate the heads up if we're missing something.
I know I'm paying for them, so if they're not there, I'm somebody's answering some questions.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. 866-594-4150. This is the Under the Hood Show, and it's time for a hoodie giveaway. Jeff Kensington is our winner this hour. Under the Hood Show hoodie giveaway is brought to you by Universal Technical Institute, uti.edu, the place to go when you want to know about automotive training and welding. Airplane mechanics, if you want to be an aircraft mechanic, that's a place to go to. If you go through their courses and decide NASCAR might be the step for you, once you get trained in the basic courses, you can step over to that course and get trained up. I mean, the NASCAR is always looking for people, and some of the brightest people they have in NASCAR today came right through Universal Technical Institute. So check them out today at uti.edu.
Well, speaking of weekend racing, this is the first year in a long time that I did not catch a single lap of the World 600. At Charlotte, it got rain delayed and they had moved that. And I watched a couple laps of the Indy mid-race that I happened to have the TV on. But did you see the highlight of the wheel coming off?
No, I missed that.
They had an accident, and over the years, they've worked really hard to tether everything on these cars to stop projectiles from going up into the stands over the catch fence.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the Indy cars coming out of, I think it was turn number 3, got into an altercation with another car, and whatever happened, it caused the wheel to come off at what I would consider almost full for the spectator. And so look that up on the internet, though, because that was a scary moment, because I know that the way they got the fences set up and the angles are set up, they believe they've got the grandstands covered. And there's been problems over the years where vehicle components have ended up in the crowd. And that's why they, like I said, NASCAR's got a lot of things tethered now so they can't fly away. And these suspension assemblies are tethered on a lot of these cars. But quite amazing when you go see that video, how far that wheel flew and how close it was to the stands.
Still in my mind, I can picture right now, don't even have to close my eyes, I can picture the lady that got hit at the NASCAR race. You remember that, where the wheel came over the thing and hit the chair in front of her and then right in the...
Yeah.
Oh,
so
that was crazy. Speaking of the Indy race, our buddy pal Chris that's playing hooky today was hanging out with Mario Andretti last week.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool. He was just doing a local event, and
we sat here in the show last week, and he didn't really say much about it.
Yeah, and then he's texting, "Hey, I'm just sitting here hanging out with Mario." I'm like, "Dude, did you even tell him about the show?" I asked him if he wanted to do an interview, but he says, "I'm taking my private jet back to Indy tonight. We got a thing going on."
He had a banquet or a meal or something that night.
I completely forgot. It's Indy weekend. Mario Andretti, of course he's going back, and Chris is like playing it cool. Yeah, I got to do that too. So All right.
He
Take
asked
care,
him to do
Mario.
something, and he said, "Yeah, I'm taking the private jet to make it back for a banquet at 5:00 or something like that."
Yeah.
And Chris said, "Yeah, same for me."
All right, let's go right back to the phones and talk to Dale, who has a 2004 Chevy Impala. How you doing, Dale?
Good, thanks. This was my mother's car, and it was literally, the little lady that just drove to church on Sundays.
Sure.
So it's got less than 80,000 miles on it. And I have been driving it for a while. When she died, I got it. But the other day when I started it, it's got the 2.6 motor in it.
Okay.
But when I started it, for less than 5 seconds, clack, 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 but then it smoothed out. And that's the only time I've ever heard it do that.
So
I just wondered what the heck.
You've got a 3.6 V6 engine in this car then.
Well, 04 would be a 3.5 yet, I think.
Or 3.4.
Yeah, I know, excuse me. I'm steering you the wrong way.
Oh, it's an 04.
04 should be a 3.4.
Yep.
Or maybe a 3.8.
Mm-hmm. You got
no,
choices.
It's not the 3.8 because that's the good motor.
Yeah, it's a 3. It's a 3. It's a 3.
What everybody says.
It's a 3.4 in there is what it's got then.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not as concerned with the older Impala like this with a 3.4, or if it even had a 3.8 with a little bit of noise. If it's been a super low mileage car, not driven a lot, I would be concerned if it was a newer one that had a 3.6 that rattled like this when you start it, because those are timing chain.
I'm going to take this 04 Impala that was little old lady owned and driven, and I'm going to really encourage that you do an engine oil system cleaner in there. Mm-hmm. Because my guess is that as that car got later in its life, her trips became less frequent and less distance traveled. And we talk about this a lot. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest challenges for a vehicle is if you don't run it enough to get a heat cycle through it. And a good heat cycle doesn't happen in 10 miles or 15 miles running back and forth to the grocery store. And so I would highly recommend, one of our partners is Justice Brothers. They've been one for years. They have an engine oil system cleaner that you put in before your oil change, and you run it up to temperature, and then you dump the oil, and it helps clean out a lot of the just excess hydrocarbons and things that can get built up in the valve train and the engine. Yeah, just that sludge that builds up. And even though that is low mileage, that sometimes can be the ones that get the most problems developed from sludge and buildup. And I would really recommend that you do that. And I think you're going to find that you can quiet this thing down, because you're not seeing any oil pressure lights coming on, or you're not seeing anything that would make you indicate a problem that way, are you?
No.
And is the car losing any is the car lost any coolant?
No.
Okay, good.
Because it's in the garage, and there was no puddles or anything.
Well, no, not just puddles, but
okay. I see what you're saying.
That vehicle,
as you're driving, if a head gasket is going bad.
The 3.4s in our part of the world had the most challenges with intake gaskets and head gaskets over time. And not all of them, but they used that motor for years and years and years in the Impalas, the minivans, some of the Grand Ams, and I mean, that was a commonly used GM engine. And so we started to learn the common things that would come up. So if you're not losing any coolant, and you got to watch your reservoir, because you can eat it up and not see it on the floor, and watch that. Yeah. And if you're not losing coolant, your oil level seems good, then that's what I would do. Is I would do an oil system cleaner. You might even have to do it a couple of times and put their conditioner in there. And I think you probably can get rid of that noise.
Okay. Justice Brothers. And what is it called again?
Oil system cleaner, engine oil system cleaner. And
engine oil system cleaner. Okay. And so when I'm going to go in and have the oil changed, dump it in before I drive it,
because the nature
dump it in a week before?
No. The nature of the cleaning is you want to have it in there just for that limited amount of time for a good heat cycle before your oil change. So maybe drive it for a half hour. Russ, would that be
15 minutes usually? You want to I would get the engine warmed up, turn it off, put it in there, start it up, and then drive it in there, but make sure it runs for at least least 10 minutes, no more than probably 20 minutes. It will burn off, but you don't want that stuff to redeposit itself.
And they're going to comment when they change your oil if you don't do it yourself. This oil looks horrible, and that's good because it's cleaning it's cleaning stuff out of the engine. So
you should change it more often.
And you might even do it on a short oil change just to do it sooner than later, so you can avoid any premature wear.
Understand.
So,
yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your help.
Thank you.
Take care. Yeah. I tell you what, I see so many cars that have low miles. Most of ours coming into our shop are very high mileage, but I do see a lot of them come in that have super low miles, and this is one of the problems they have. They have, issues with ticking of the lifters and things like that, and a lot of it has to do with the oil. They just haven't changed it. So 866-594-4150. You're listening to The End of the Hood Show. The End of the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturtevant's.
Enter out right now and schedule your next radio appointment with the Motor Medics.
Eight 866-594-4150. I'm Russ Evans along with Shannon Nordstrom, and you're listening to the Under the Hood Show. You can check us out on Facebook, YouTube, podcast, and don't forget all those stations, those big, beautiful antenna stations across the United States.
They got them on AM. They got them on FM.
And speaking of AM, they were going to take the AM radio out of cars. They've been talking about this for years and trying to get away with it. But enough of you out there, thankfully, thank you, everybody, screamed and told the truth. The truth is AM radio is huge for emergency broadcast system, for all your local sports. You got a kid playing in school, you may not hear their game. If you happen to miss it, you're working and you desperately want to hear it, you just may not hear it because you don't have AM radio. Well, guess what? They were going to pull it out of the cars. Ford was the first one to say, yep, we're done with it. And they said, we can't put it in our cars because it's gonna make make some noise. For our engines are going to interfere with it. It's like, really? You're making those same engines that, you've been making them already. There's no reason the other manufacturers can do it. So why can't you do it? So yeah, thankfully they are going to continue. The AM is still running. We had a scare. We thought our Westwood One does our broadcasting of our satellite version of the show to stations, and they said, if you're listening out there right now and you're at a station, they're not going to take all the shows off it's only the Westwood programs that are being moved to a new platform right now. And once they get all the programming figured out, then they'll move the shows like us and the ones that aren't owned by Westwood One, the independents like us, over. But they thought all of them were going to disappear June 1st, and they're not. But you can also find Under the Hood Show on the Google Play Store. Producer Doug, thanks, Doug.
Did you check that out, Doug? Oh, good. We just had a listener who said he couldn't find it, so we'll have to, if you're still listening there, make sure you, it was Chris, I think, that was the one that had asked. And it's Under the Hood Show is where you can find it. Should finish up with our towing segment. So today we're talking about road trip breakdowns and towing and just what do you do when you break down on the side of the road. And Shannon, things we should have in our car to keep us from being stranded, to help get us to the next exit. Well, make sure that your vehicle has a worthy spare tire and you have the right tools. A spare tire, period. And, as far as a jack and a wrench that is good to get it off. There's a lot of cars anymore that they don't come with a spare tire. And they just, it's not a requirement to have it. So I know, like for our automotive recycling facility, there's certain cars that we know that the spare tire and jack kit is going to be one of the first things that we sell out of it. And so you want to make sure that you have what you need. And if you're not sure, on the internet, there's a plethora of resources for people that can help you find out which wheels fit what. That used to be such a problem, but interchangeability and these different things is a big deal. And I have no problem with a temporary spare as long as it's got air in it and it fits your car. And it bolts on. And some of them come with that little can of air Which doesn't do any good if you blow the sidewall out of your tire.
Yeah, and that can of air, make sure, look at the expiration date, because a lot of them are 3 to 5 years. And if you can buy a new one at the dealer, make sure it's not expired when you buy it. I bought a couple of them that were expired. So if you screw that on your tire, no air is going to come out of it and fill your tire if it's expired and old. So make sure that you've got air to fill it, or even a little compressor in there. Some of the cars come with a compressor. That's good. And you can even, if you don't feel like jacking up your car, you can get an electric, by hand. You can get a little electric jack off of Amazon, which is really cool. Slides into the car, plugs into the cigarette lighter, and it raises your car up or your trailer. Pretty neat. So if you've got a trailer, make sure you've got at least one spare for that, spare for your car. Little antifreeze, keeping some antifreeze in your trunk, a bottle of coolant does not hurt.
And our friends at K-Seal would remind you that if you had sprung a small leak, that don't just seal it, K-Seal it.
That can
letter K-Seal.
It could save your life. It could keep you going to the next exit.
Yes, and maybe longer, because this product works so good if it's the right kind of leak.
I can't find the leak. You said there was a leak. Yeah, it lost a gallon, but I put K-Seal in it and filled it up, and now it's dry.
K-Seal's not going to fix a broken hose. It's not going to fix a head gasket that blew out and you got a 1/4-inch gap in the head gasket when they pull the head off. It's not going to do that. But
some tools, some duct tape.
But it can help some of the minor things. But it is important that you have a plan. This weekend I am going to, my daughter Ava, the youngest, had asked me, she goes, Dad, I really need to know how to change a tire.
Good
and
idea.
I go, we haven't done that yet. And so I need to get her out in the driveway, and we need to get her stuff out of her car and just practice changing a tire with her.
We're coming up into summer season where people are starting to get some driver's license. Young people, do a few things with them. Teach them how to pump gas, because most of them come out of driver's ed not knowing that. Teach them how to change a tire, and then show them those things like, a kit to help yourself, a blanket in the winter, and all those kind of things.
I've got a couple driver's ed trainings coming up next week, and I think we also put a video on YouTube last year from the Under the Hood show.
We did.
Of me doing one of those seminars. So you can go to the Under the Hood show and look that up for a young driver.
This has been another episode of the Under the Hood show. We'll see you again next week. Take care, everybody. Well, YouTubers, welcome back to Under the Hood. Thanks for joining us. This is the after show. This is what Chris usually says, like, hey, this is the after show. Well, this really is the after show, the after Chris show. Too bad we had to fire him.
It was tragic.
I wonder if we let that go out there, if we'd probably have so many people. I don't even want to go that. I don't want to play that joke. It's just a joke, people. I don't want to say it because we'll have so many people that'll be emailing us.
Chris has already got experience with making people think he left somewhere.
Yeah. Surprise, I'm back. I just went on a 6-month vacation or whatever it was.
We miss Chris when he's not here, and now we pick on him because we love him.
It's so much fun. I tell you, when all three of us are here, it's more fun, and it took a while to get the hang of pushing the buttons back here, but it's boring pushing buttons. I'd rather, talk to Chris and distract him while he's trying to push buttons.
And he adds so much character to the show because we get talking about car stuff, and next thing you know, we're in the weeds, and people are like, gosh, we need a little laughter here. We need some fun. And Chris always does a good job of bringing us back to humanity if we get too far out in the weeds on things. So hopefully he's got a sore back today, really hurting, and so hopefully he's feeling better. And there he is, from carrying the show. And so when he's not here, that should take some strain off his back, I think, since he's not carrying us around for 2 hours of the show.
That's a lot of weight. I'm carrying a few extra pounds these days, so I can imagine.
I don't think so. You're working too hard at home.
I work out. Hey, we're going to go to the phone. We're going to talk to Tim in Oklahoma. Tim is on the Under the Hood show after show. How you doing, Tim? I'm
doing good, sir.
Oklahoma, 2019 Hyundai Ionic. How do you like that car?
I love it. This is my second one.
Second. So is this it's a 19. What is this, an Ionic 3? What is that, 19?
It was a hybrid. It
Mm-hmm.
was a 1 point with battery. So it would just automatically go back and forth to engine to battery. And let me tell you, I can camp in this car. It'll turn on the engine for 10 minutes, and then it'll be on battery for 30 minutes, and it'll keep the temperature in the car the same. The only reason this is my second one is I upgraded, and I got the fully loaded one.
People do that with these cars. We find there's kind of a cult following with these, just like the Prius, and people like to upgrade pretty much not because they don't like what they have or even the miles or the age. They just want all the new bells and whistles. There's a lot of cool things. I know that now the new Ionics are all electric, 100% electric. So that's a new change.
100%.
Don't know what the miles are on those though.
I don't know, and I don't want 100% electric. I kind of like to have the choice of having both.
That was the question I was going to ask you is, what has drawn you to this model the most, and why did you get two of them? I like to ask people these questions, and you just answered one of them, but tell us a little bit about it, why you like it so much.
Well, I was traveling about 48 miles one way to work from where I worked, and so I got my first one to save gas, and I got my second one because it was a 2019 model, and the 2019 year was almost over, and there was a fully loaded one on the showroom floor. I went in for an oil change, saw this thing, and I said, sold. They worked with me. I got almost the same kind of payment that I had with my first one, and I paid the car off. It is amazing. I love this car. I've gotten up to 69.9 miles per gallon with this thing.
Wow. That's substantial.
It doesn't happen all the time, and in the wintertime it's worse because the batteries are cold, and you might get 35 to 45 in the winter, but in the summer, man, it's fantastic.
Yeah, as hybrids improve and go along, they just keep the mileage anyways on them keeps getting better and better. I'm really surprised we haven't seen more, and they're probably holding them in the bag, just waiting for when they're forced by the officials to make them more fuel efficient. But cars that are flex fuel, they can run like an E85 and electric. So you've got not only just a hybrid, but it's a hybrid being a flex fuel car or a diesel. Can you imagine if they made like a diesel Volkswagen Passat with the benefits of those things get 45, 50 miles per gallon with a diesel engine, and then you throw the hybrid on there. I think between the two of those, when you're out of hybrid power and you're out on the interstate pushing it pretty hard, you'd still get the good benefits of the diesel. But Hyundai's got it down pretty good. That Ionic it's been a very low repair car. We've had a couple of customers call with those that have had a lot of miles on them, asking about doing brake jobs. And these were like 150,000 miles. And the reason they don't need brakes very often is because they use regenerative braking. So when you take your foot off that pedal, the car does a lot of the braking on its own and recovers that energy through its generation system to charge the batteries. So you're not wearing out the brake pads. That's a nice benefit.
And I know one of the maintenance items on some of the Priuses and things or other electric cars is they have to get the brakes moving because they'll seize up because they don't use them enough. So it like lubrication basically of the brake slides to make sure everything keeps moving because they just don't use them enough.
Yep, you gotta run them quite a bit.
Did you have a problem with yours, or are you just chatting about it? Because I do enjoy this conversation.
Well, the reason I was calling was the only problem that I've ever had. It coded and it talked about a catalytic converter, and I've got a lifetime warranty on the engine, transmission, and battery as long as I own the car. And they said, okay, it coded, but if you have this problem again, bring it in, we'll replace it. And so I was just wondering if you guys knew of any other problems with this car, because I absolutely love it.
We should have to pull, we could pull up here at Nordstrom's. We have our parent company is Nordstrom's Auto Recycling. I'm looking out right now over our sales counter. Shannon can't see it, but I can see the fight going on at the front counter. No, there's nobody fighting out there. He'd be through the window. What's going on? What's going on? Stop it. But we could look up on our system all parts sold for an Ionic. We could see how many cars came in, how many parts we've sold. But I can tell you, since this car came out, I think I've had 2 calls, and they were both without brakes. There was nothing else. No calls for radios that had failed. No calls for, anything weird. That
I like
failed.
looking at the long-term tests, like in Car and Driver and Motor Trend, Consumer Reports. I think they still do the long-term tests. But if you go in and look at some of those, they'll own one in their fleet for like a year, and then they'll write down what were the problems they had warranty problems with, what were the problems they had with getting maintenance done, and all those different things. From my standpoint, one of the challenges with a car like this, the sales numbers are low enough. It's hard to get a ratio of demand because you've got so few of them sold. The highest majority of them are under long-term factory warranties. So a lot of the problems don't make it to the secondary market to learn about because they are taking care of it at the dealerships.
I've also been told that to have one of these cars in the Midwest is pretty rare because they're usually West Coast or East Coast cars. That's what I've been told by Hyundai themselves. Yeah,
I believe if you talk to our local dealer, they would tell you that they don't sell as many as dealers in other parts of the country. That's for sure. I talked to a lady that had one of the all-electrics when our Sioux Valley Electric, local electric cooperative, did a kind of a car show for electric cars at our local fairgrounds. And we went out there and walked around and chatted with a lady, and she loved hers too. But with that particular situation, I would have wanted the hybrid from what she was telling me. She was talking about how she had to plan her trip to Minneapolis and getting to the charging station at a certain time, getting to one charging station that was full, and so she couldn't use it and had to wait. And then coming home knowing that she was getting low on charge and they were trying to make it to Redwood Falls, and so they had to plan a stop there because there was a charging station, hoping that it was all working and operational, and then having dinner there because they had to charge for an extended period of time. It just didn't sound like my kind of trip. I would have I don't make a flight plan when I go somewhere. When I got to go, I'm ready to go. And I'm not planning a lot because I probably just barely got away from what I was doing last. So for me, that would be hard. But the hybrid, that's perfect because you still have both options available. That's why I think they're gonna sell a heck of a lot more hybrids going forward with the conversion of the world than they will full electrics to begin with. I think the hybrids will continue to explode.
And I agree with that, but now the Ionic 5 and the Ionic 6, and who knows what comes after that, they're 100% electric, and I will not buy 100% electric because, just like you said, you're limited. You have to plan your trip, and I just like to go wherever. And I never have to plug my car in because if you let off the gas, it recharges the batteries. If you hit the brakes, it recharges the batteries. It'll recharge the battery while you're doing. I've got 55 miles per gallon doing 85 miles an hour. And stuff like that is just unheard of. And now it's not a race car, but I've slept in this car. I've left it running all night. And the whole thing, it switches from the engine to the battery. And when the battery gets slow, it switches back to the engine. It's just amazing. I don't have to worry about a thing.
That's pretty impressive. Well, I'm glad you enjoy the car, and we'll see how the continuing evolution happens here with the introduction to the public, and how with the push being made by the government and the acceptance by the people being lukewarm in some areas and cold in others and hot in others. It'll just be interesting how this evolution takes place. But in the meantime, it's fun to watch the technology evolve. That's for sure.
It is. I love my car. I want to keep my car, and because of all the warranties that's on my car, I plan to do that.
And one last thing: if you are truly having a catalytic converter problem, that is something that oftentimes has an extended warranty from the factory because of federal emissions requirements. That warranty is oftentimes longer than the vehicle warranty because of the emissions requirements. So just keep that in the back of your mind.
I certainly will. Thank you guys so much for your time. I appreciate your input on everything.
Thanks for the call. All right, we're going to go back to the phones here on the after show, and we're going to talk to Scott in Virginia, who has a 2018 Ford Escape. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing good, and I love the show. I listen to the podcast every morning and every evening going home to and back from work, and I love the show.
That's awesome. We appreciate that. We can't thank you guys enough out there for listening to us, and it still makes us kind of weirded out when people say, I've listened to every episode of your podcast, or even 2 episodes a day. We're like, what? And I was just posting up the other night, and I realized I'm on episode 1959 or 69,
really?
Or something like that. I was like,
wow,
that's a lot of episodes. We were just looking here in our new studio since we started doing YouTube. We've been in here for, I think this is episode 116 on YouTube. So, Shannon, that means we've been in this studio here doing this on YouTube for 116 episodes. It just doesn't seem that long, does it?
No, it doesn't.
But that's time rolls. And I know that's true because I can count backwards on them and go 16, 15, 14. So you've got a 2018 Escape, huh?
Yes. Yeah. And it's got a, almost like a shutter, like a miss when you're going about 40 to 45 mile an hour, going up a hill or something. And I put a set of plugs in it, but that didn't make no difference whatsoever. And I was just wondering if you guys had any ideas or had that issue before.
Yeah. Did you do any coils on this vehicle?
I didn't. I just put plugs in it.
The Escape is really good about coil failure, and a lot of times they seem to fail on the back, the side that's harder to get to, because they're under the intake manifold and they get hot. That's just a heat buildup source back there. So the right way to do it with the age and miles, would be to all 6. But if you want to,
well, this one in 18 might be a 4-cylinder, Russ.
Is it a 4 or 6?
It's a 4-cylinder. It's got the 2.5 4-cylinder.
Then lucky you. You can replace them all out the top.
Yeah, that's that newer generation of Escape, and they had a
you got the turbo 1.4?
No, 2.5. He's got the non-turbo 4-cylinder, right?
Oh, good. Lucky you.
It's the non-turbo 4-cylinder.
We're putting a lot of these engines in, so if you've got, I got to do a PSA here, public service announcement. If you have a turbo 4-cylinder Escape and it's got 80,000 miles on it, and you're thinking, I've still got a ways to go before the timing belt. No, get it changed now, because the last three that we've put engines in, and we've put quite a few of these in our shop, the last 3 had between 80 and 84,000 miles, and the timing belts jumped on them and destroyed the engine on every one of them. And they said, they're good for 100,000.
Oh, wow.
They are not. Depending on the part of the country you're in, they are not.
That was the turbo small motor, correct?
Yeah. But this engine here is tough. We have not put an engine in one of these yet. They've been really good. We have put a number of ignition coils on them and spark plugs to keep them tuned up. But,
now Russ, he should be able to put a misfire, just the scanner, and watch the live data and see what's going on.
See which one's misfiring. If it's picking it up, it might be too slight.
Yeah, I tried my idiot scanner, and it wasn't showing any codes whatsoever.
Okay, now you'll have to look. That may or may not have data in it. You'll need something that reads misfire data. If you can find that, then you could see if it's got a misfire that way. But it's going to have to be capable of reading misfire data. I've got 4 or 5 different brands of those Bluetooth scanners that are there, and they're a couple of them will read data, misfire data, airbag codes, everything, and the other ones don't. They just tell you if you've got a regular code or not. So they're kind of worthless for me, looking for that, because I typically read data more than I rely on codes. So I would do that first. Read the data, drive it, see what it says. But if it gives you, if you see any misfires on any cylinders in that thing, then due to the age, I'd say it's time to put a set of coils on it. That's just a tune-up thing, basically. Plugs, wires. Well, we don't have wires anymore. We have coils, so we have to do plugs and coils.
Okay, I'll try that.
All right. Thanks for calling.
All right, thank you, and I appreciate you guys, and love the show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, those escapes, Shannon. I tell you what, those turbo engines, we get more of those more than I like to see. It makes me a little nervous that the timing belts are going out far before. These manufacturers put on there, they say engine oil, change it when the light comes on. No, this and that. And I had a Volkswagen in yesterday. Now, Volkswagen's kind of tricky to reset the maintenance indicator and the oil change light on the dash. It's better with a scanner. But what I do like about those is just like the Subaru that has the intelligent system on the dash, from the scanner, you can tell it maximum amount of days you want till a light comes on and says change oil, maximum amount of engine run time, and maximum amount of
you can
miles.
set it.
Yeah, so I didn't set the run time, but I did set the miles and the days because I know they don't drive it very often and it's going to get very few miles. So I said 6 months, 4,000 miles. It's fully synthetic because I know they're going to exceed that. They only got like 2,500 in the last year. So I put that there, and then they can choose. If they don't want to change it, then they can hit reset and it'll reset, but it'll keep that memory in there now from now on until somebody changes the adapters with a scanner. So it kind of helps. But you can do that with your transmission fluid, a lot of other things in there too. Engine coolant, it had lots of goodies. So, all right, everybody, this has been another episode of the Under the Hood Show without Chris Carter. We miss him dearly. Anyways, he'll be back next week. Well, we hope.
We'll get him back. We'll carry him in here if we have to. We could make like an elevated board
and lower him through the roof.
He could just lay in here.
Could we cut a hole in the roof and lower him through the roof?
Little work.
Producer Doug?
Probably not. Probably pass on that one.
I have faith he could do it.
Landlord says no.
Landlord says no. Okay. All right, everybody. Take care.